Hey there Dev Squad, Vertus here, and today we're going to be going through the process of how you can create your very first video game. This isn't going to be a tutorial as such, and it's going to focus more on the process and the best practices and things that you want to keep in mind when you're creating your first video game. We're going to be talking about everything ranging from getting inspired, creating a game design document, realistic scope, learning the skills, and then lastly, marketing and release. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the next section, which is getting inspired. Now, before you can actually make a video game, you need to have an idea, and coming up with a solid, viable game idea can be quite hard to do, whether it just be a lack of creative juices or even just coming up with an idea that people are going to want to play and people are going to love. Now, typically when I'm trying to come up with a game idea, I go through a couple of different steps. First and foremost, I need to get the creative juices flowing, and the way that I do that is to just sit down and play some video games, watch a movie, and just doing this is going to help give you that inspiration and get those creative juices going. Now, if you're coming up with an idea or you need an idea for a video game, you can just think completely out of the box. Or if you want to have a higher chance of being successful, what you can actually do is take various gameplay mechanics from successful games and then mix them together. Now, one thing that you do want to keep in mind when you're putting together that video game idea is it needs to be different to what is out there already. The games industry is already really oversaturated with Call of Duty clones, generic RPGs, or just games that are trying to be the next Skyrim. Now, having said that, you need to do it different, and that is why, like I said before, taking popular gameplay mechanics and mixing them together can be good because you know it's going to work. But you need to have your own unique twist on that to make it different. You need to have a reason why players are going to come to your game instead of another game. For example, if you have two Call of Duty games or two Call of Duty-like games that both play in exactly the same way, which one are they going to play, or which one are they going to jump into? And that's simply going to be the actual Call of Duty game, or the one that looks the best. And creating the best looking game can be difficult, so instead focus on coming up with an innovative and unique game idea instead. Once you've got this amazing idea for your video game, it is time to flesh it out into something which is called a game design document. This game design document, and that is going to include absolutely everything for your video game, including your characters, your levels, your story, your art style, and everything else. And the main purpose of this game design document is to push you to think about how your game is actually going to play and how it is going to be seen. So you'll cover absolutely everything, like I said, about characters, art style, story, and all of that good stuff, but you're also going to be going in and looking at the nitty-gritty of those gameplay mechanics. So you're going to know how every single player ability is going to work, how that might have an effect on the enemies that you have, and all of that good stuff. Now, one of the main purposes for a game design document is to make sure that your team are on the same page. If you're working on a team, you need to make sure that everyone has the same idea and they're working from the same page, because if they've got a different idea to what you have, then what you're going to end up is spending a lot of time writing code for something that isn't actually going to be included in your game. Whereas, as a other developer and other members of your team, if they actually have this same idea and are on the same page to start with, everything is going to work really smoothly. Now, if you want to see how a game design document is actually going to look, you can actually check out the various game design document templates which can be found online. What I have done is I've actually included a game design document template in the description of this video for you guys to check out. While you're putting together your game design document and this game idea of yours, you need to take into consideration realistic scope, as it's incredibly important, and this is something that we are going to be moving on to in the next section now. Scope is something which is really important as a video game developer, especially as an indie developer. A lot of people go into the game development industry thinking they're going to be able to create the next Call of Duty or the next Skyrim or the next Grand Theft Auto, and they don't actually think about all of the resources and the time that it's going to take to make that game. Teams like those that are working on titles behind Grand Theft Auto or Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty or Skyrim are actually going to have incredibly large teams, a lot bigger than most would think. For example, the team behind Grand Theft Auto had over 200 developers working on it, and if you are just an indie developer working by yourself, or maybe even just with 5 people, you are not going to be able to compete with that in terms of the amount of assets that you're going to be able to create. And 95% of indie development teams are not able to finish their products, and that is simply because they are not thinking about realistic scope. Having said that, when you're actually planning your game, you need to plan it with modularity and realistic scope in mind. So what I mean by that is you need to think about the resources that you have available to you. If you are just one person, you need to think about the level of quality that you can put out there very, very quickly. Or if you have a team of 5 people, think about what they could realistically create in the amount of time that you want to work with. You don't want to be creating one single game for years and years. You want to put something out there nice and quickly, so maybe have a development cycle of 6 months, 3 months, a year, but you want to be thinking about what you can do with the time and the resources that you have. What you also want to think about is modularity, which is essentially just the process of creating assets which are going to be reused over and over and over again. And the reason for this is just to simply save you from having to create hundreds and hundreds of assets. For example, if you're creating a building, you can reuse the same flooring, the same walling, and the same ceiling. You're not going to need to change that, and there is no point creating different assets for every single room. Instead, you can just create a very basic set which you can use throughout the entire building, and then you just put a few little details on top of that to save yourself a lot of time. And little techniques and best practices like this can go a long way for creating your video game. So now that you've actually got your game idea, you've got it ready to go, and you've also considered realistic scope, it is time to actually take on a game engine and learn the skills for making all of this happen. So let's take a look at that. So the very first thing that you want to think about when it comes to learning the skills is you need to choose a game engine, and there is lots and lots of options out there, and we're going to take a brief look at a couple of these in this video. Some popular game engines which are industry standard include Unity, Unreal Engine, Game Maker, CryEngine, and more. Now, with there being quite a few options out there for you, what you need to do is you need to make a decision based on the requirements of your project, taking on the pros and the cons of each of those game engines and what they are going to be able to offer your project. For example, if you're working on a 2D mobile game, you don't want to be looking for a game engine which is going to give you super realistic PBR materials. It's just going to have no use to you. Yes, it might be a feature of the engine, but it is not going to be a feature of the engine which is going to benefit you. So having said that, make an informed decision on the game engine that you actually choose based on what you need as a developer for that specific project. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a moment to go through 3 different game engines, those being Unreal Engine, Unity, and Game Maker, and we're going to talk through some of the key points that you're going to want to consider when you're actually choosing which game engine to make your video game with. The first one is Unreal Engine, which is a really powerful game engine for creating high fidelity games, and it also allows you to publish to a variety of different game platforms, whether it be mobile, desktop, console, you name it, Unreal Engine is going to be able to do it. Now with Unreal Engine, one thing that is going to set it apart from all of the others is the fact that you are going to have blueprints. Blueprints is a visual scripting programming language which is going to allow you to very rapidly put together prototypes for your video game. And you don't even have to be a programmer to be able to use blueprints. And that is something which is really, really great. It allows artists to actually take control of a game engine and do things like that. Moving on from there, we have also got Unity, which is also going to allow you to publish to a variety of different platforms. Now, while Unity is also going to allow you to take advantage of PBR materials and create realistic scenes, it does not have the power of Unreal Engine's blueprints to allow you to rapidly put those prototypes together without using code. Now, if you are a C# or a JavaScript developer and you're looking to take your existing skills and just put it straight into a game engine, then Unity is going to be a great option for you. If you are a programmer that knows C++, which is quite a difficult language, then you can also apply that to Unreal Engine, but Blueprints is something which Unreal Engine has and is really good for beginners. So if you are a beginner looking to pick up a game engine, then Unreal Engine is definitely a really good option for you. Now, both Unreal Engine and Unity, they do have a big community around it, and there is lots of documentation and learning material around to actually help you learn that software. Myself, I have hundreds and hundreds of videos teaching you how you can use Unreal Engine. Now, the last game engine that I wanted to take a brief look at was GameMaker. GameMaker is made exclusively for creating 2D mobile games. Having said that, it's really optimized and it's going to allow you to have those small packages. So if you're looking to create a 2D mobile game, then GameMaker is definitely a good option for you. If you're making a 2D game, you're not going to need to have this massive, powerful engine such as Unreal Engine or Unity powering it behind it. A simple 2D game can be a lot better built with GameMaker, as its sole purpose is just 2D games. Once you've actually chosen your game engine that you want to learn, there is a whole variety of different ways that you can actually learn. For example, you could go to college and learn these skills, you could go to university, or you can even just watch online courses, such as myself, like I mentioned earlier. You've also got documentation online, you've got forums, and you've got loads and loads of people out there that can help you learn these skills. Now, the best way that I found to learn for myself is to watch some fundamental skills, be this a course or even just going through and reading documentation. What you want to do with that then is simply set yourself a challenge and try to complete that challenge. And what this is going to do is push you and force you to learn skills outside of the scope of what you've already known already. So you're going to be pushing yourself to learn those new things that you otherwise wouldn't. Now, when you're actually watching online courses, especially the courses of my own, such as my FPS or my RPG series, I don't advise you just go ahead and copy that line by line and create the exact same game that I do. If you actually want to understand the logic and everything that I've done, then I definitely advise you try and expand on that, take that one step further and add in your own gameplay mechanics. Because these tutorials are not there to give you an entire game. They are actually there to teach you the foundation and the fundamental skills you're going to need to have for creating a video game. Not only that, they are also there to teach you the workflow so you understand how all of these different pieces come together to create a video game. If you have a question or just want an extra little bit of help on your way to becoming a video game developer, I definitely advise you go ahead and join our Discord community, the link for which is in the description. It is just discord.gg/Virtus. Inside of there, we have over 3,000 other aspiring Unreal Engine developers, so if that is something you've got a question on, drop it in there and you are going to have a helping hand to point you in the right direction. While you're in there, be sure to showcase your work that you are creating, as we're actually going to be choosing our favorite pieces and uploading it to our social media every single weekend. So now that we actually have a video game idea and we know how to learn the skills to make this video game idea to come to life, what we need to do is look at marketing and releasing a video game. So at this point you should have a game, or you should be on your way to creating your very first game. Now you need to be able to get it out to the public so people can actually play it. Now, To be able to do this successfully, you have to do marketing, because people aren't just going to come by and find your game by chance. So having said that, you've got to take advantage of social media and other marketing techniques to get it out to your potential audience. Now, when it comes to marketing, generally, you want to spend just as much time marketing your game as you do developing it in the first place. And having said that, what you are going to find is a lot of development teams are going to employ publishers or marketing staff to actually take care of this, because it is quite a big job that a lot of people do not appreciate and they do not invest time and money into. Now then, by all means, marketing your very own video game is definitely something that you can do. And like I said, you can actually outsource that task to other people so that you can focus on developing your video game yourself. Now, if you do want to market it yourself, it is something that you can definitely do. So having said that, if you want to do it, you can take advantage of social media platforms. You want to build yourself hype and you want to be able to get out to those potential audience. Now, I could sit here and I could make an entire video about marketing on social media and all of that good stuff. Now, generally what you want to do is, before you release the game, months in advance, you want to start to build that community. And you can build this community around devlogs or progress videos and just any little bit about your video game just to tease people. And trailers is a really good way to do that. So if you've got this content ahead of launching your game, chuck it out there on your social media. Now, to get people to go to your social media in the first place, you also need to get this out to other influencers. Now, these influencers aren't just other YouTubers, it is also going to be things like video game magazines and newsletters, games websites, and all of that good stuff. So it's definitely reaching out to people that already have an audience and give them something that that audience is going to be interested in, which is your game. You still need to take advantage of normal SEO and social media management practices, but all of that good stuff you can actually do a little bit of research on yourself. There is plenty of it online that you can find out. Now, if you do have any further questions, or you would like me to put together an entire marketing video for video games, then go ahead and let me know in the description. But if you do want a little bit of help from developers that have done it or are doing it at the moment, I definitely advise you go ahead and look at our Discord server. Now, the first thing that you want to be thinking about when you go to release your video game, before you even get to any of the social media stuff, is the platforms that you're going to be getting it onto. And that is going to be everything from itch.io, the Steam store, the Epic Games store, and the like. Is you need to think about that and where you're going to release it to and what you can release it to as well. Once you've done that, you are going to need to compare all of them. Now, what I mean by that is each of these different video game stores that you have here are going to have their pros and cons, just in the same way the game engines did. So they are going to have different potential releases, some of them might want exclusivity, and some of them even have different revenue share amounts that you need to take into consideration. So things that you might want to take into consideration might be the fact that Steam takes quite a high revenue share cut out of what you're going to get, but at the same time it is also going to have a much higher potential release for the number of people that you can advertise and get your game out to. Whereas the Epic Games Store, for example, that is going to give more money to the developer and to yourself. But on the other hand, it doesn't have quite the audience that Steam does at the moment. So having said that, you need to weigh up all of these different pros and cons of these various game stores before you release. Once you've done this, now it is time to actually look at the social media aspect. So when it comes to marketing a video game, you need to be thinking about doing this way before you actually go and launch that game. So you want to have initial sales on launch day, and to do that, you actually need to build up hype ahead of time. So having said that, you are going to have to release little pieces of content before you release, whether that be teaser trailers, concept art, or even just building a following on social media. That is something that you want to do and take advantage of. A great way to do this is to release development logs showing your video game and how it's actually coming along with it. Now, not only are you going to have to do that, you are also going to have to look at releasing trailers and other little pieces along the way. With these trailers and with these devlogs, you can put this into a social media platform to actually build a community on. But to actually get people to see that and to get people to that platform in the first place, you've got to take advantage of influencers. And this is something that not a lot of developers are doing. An influencer is essentially someone that has an audience already and is something that you can take advantage of to get people to come to you. So, for example, if you've got a video games magazine and you're releasing your game and you've released a trailer, you want to get your trailer in that magazine so all of the people that look at that magazine can see your game and can potentially come to you. By taking advantage of these strategies such as influencers, building up a social media marketing campaign and alike, you are going to be able to capitalize on your video game that you've spent countless hours creating. Now, if you want to see me create an entire video on going through these marketing techniques step by step, then let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you have any questions on marketing and releasing a game, you can also ask us in our Discord server. That is pretty much everything that I have for you today. Creating your very first video game can be a very intimidating experience, and if you have followed the best practices as found in this video, you are going to be on your way to becoming a video game developer in no time at all. Take advantage of our free courses that we do have available on our channel and join our Discord community for additional help along the way. That is absolutely everything that I have got for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. As always guys, stay awesome, keep creating. Your boy Virtus, signing out. This video was made possible by my supporters on Patreon. If you want more videos like this, check out my Patreon page using the link in the description. To stay up to date on new releases, make sure you follow us on social media.